What's better than advanced copies of your next book? Advanced copies of your next 2 books. Welcome to Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Jim Rugg. Our international correspondent Ed Piskor is on a manga quest in the land of the rising sun. We will get an update from Tokyo later on. But first, welcome to my studio. So I have had a very exciting week around here. On Monday, advanced copies of The Plain Janes arrived at my house. This was a total surprise and very exciting. And on Tuesday, advanced copies of Street Angel, Deadliest Girl Alive arrived. So talk about a 1-2 punch. Probably the most exciting week of my life as a cartoonist anyway. Getting advanced copies of my next 2 books on back-to-back days. Very exciting. Whenever these books come out, the advanced copies are kind of the moment of truth. We don't do wet proofs. We did not do wet proofs for either of these books, at least not in their entirety. The Plain Janes is printed in 3 different colors. Each chapter is a different spot color. So the first one is this like indigo blue color. The second one is kind of a magenta, a dark magenta color. And the third one is a teal color. So for proofs, what we did with this I guess they were wet proofs. If you think back a couple of weeks to when we showed off the wet proofs for Ed's studio edition, we did something along those lines to show us how the art would look with these different spot color inks. But we only did that with a few pages. So we had an idea of how this was going to look, but we didn't have a bound book. We didn't have the book in its entirety. A lot of the proofing that we would do would occur in PDFs, and holding the actual book at size in bound copies is a very different experience than looking at it on screens, as you can imagine, and trying to picture how this is going to look. So unpacking the books when they finally arrive is really it's a very exciting moment. It can be a moment that's a little bit fraught. If you find something wrong at that stage, your options are destroy the print run or live with the mistake. So there's a little bit of trepidation at that stage. Fortunately, I had very good teams at both Image Comics and Little Brown. We caught a lot of stuff going through just approval processes. There's several stages of everybody involved signing off. Found a lot of stuff along the way, but so far I haven't found anything wrong with these books since they've showed up. And it's kind of it's a very nice moment whenever the advanced copies arrive. At that point, it's out of your hands, and you just get to kind of sit down. Each evening I just sat down with these books and went through them. Whenever you're creating a graphic novel, you work at a pretty intense pace. When I was drawing Plain Janes, I think I was drawing something like 10 pages a week. So there's not a lot of time to stop and reflect while you're in the process. Most of looking back at any of these works is mostly for reference. If you're referring to something that happened previously in the books, you may go back and look at something. But for the most part, it is just steady, each day, new pages, new paper, and moving forward. And so whenever the books arrive, it's a chance to really kind of sit down and go back through it and maybe, see this stuff with a relatively fresh set of eyes. So it's a pretty great experience. It's always one of my favorite moments of making books since I started. I can remember Aphrodisiac arriving from Ad House Books, the advanced copy, and almost being overwhelmed to the point of tears, seeing this thing that I had spent years working on and seeing it in person. It's a big moment. It's a very exciting moment as a cartoonist. I know a lot of cartoonists watch this show, so you can probably relate. And I kind of get the same buzz whenever I make mini comics and zines. That very first issue, you have this idea in your head. Sometimes it takes months or years to get to the point of having that finished piece in your hands. And that's a great moment. It's crossing the finish line of a long race. So in the case of The Plain Janes and Street Angel, both of these books really go back over 10 years of my life. This is new material in some cases. The Plain Janes began, I think, in 2006, 2007. I probably started working on the very first volume of The Plain Janes. This new edition of the Plain Janes collects the previously published 2 books as well as an all-new 3rd book. So it's one complete epic. You can see it. It's like 500 pages. Very cool. At some point, I'll probably... The other photo, we take pictures early on of the stack of original artwork. That's a very fun photo for cartoonists to take and share, and I'm always excited when I see that on anybody's Instagram. But the other photo that's a fun one to do is once you start having books published with spines, is you take a photo of the shelf, with all of your books on it. And so this is probably the thickest spine of any book that I've done so far. I'm kind of looking around at what's on my shelves, and this is a lot of work here. So about 500 pages. I'm super excited for it. And our question with this book was that spot color. You want your books to look different. You want your books to look unique. And the spot color was something, whenever Little Brown proposed that, I thought it sounded great. Obviously books have been printed in one color before. I think That One Summer by Jillian and Mariko Tamaki comes to mind as being a one-color printing that really is beautiful. And so that was something we talked about when we were kind of putting this book together and ideas for this book. And to me, it reminds me of both like the shoujo manga, which I'm a fan of, and also a little bit of risograph. Whenever I posted some pictures on Instagram a couple days ago, somebody mentioned or asked if it was risograph printed. It is not. It's offset. We're doing thousands of these. But it does kind of, whenever they mention risograph, it does remind me of that a little bit. And I'm a fan of the risograph aesthetic. I like the way that texture looks. I love the bright colors. And so we're getting some of that in Plain Janes. And seeing it as a book is so exciting. We had done advanced arcs that we gave out to librarians and retailers and at some different shows to kind of promote the book's release. But they were in black and white. And there's a world of difference. That was something I would try to explain to people as I'm handing out the arcs, is like, well, keep in mind, this is going to be spot colors and this is going to be a different color. And so actually seeing the book printed is both a relief and very exhilarating. It's something I would do mock-ups digitally to try to figure out like how is this going to look in color, but you never really know until you actually see the printed piece. So that's super exciting. I am thrilled with it. Thank you, Little Brown. It was a really cool package. Both of these books arrived kind of as a surprise. So I came home one day to find a box from Little Brown, and I thought it might be more arcs for an upcoming signing or something like that. That's what they've been doing, is sending me arcs whenever I go out to conventions or store signings or anything. And I just assumed it was more arcs because it is a couple of months away from release. So when I open up the box, I find gift wrapped a couple of these advanced copies. And it was just very fun. Very fun, very exciting to open those up. I really appreciate everybody at Little Brown. Whoever's responsible for gift wrapping these things and sending them to me, thank you. Great, great move. Fantastic. As for Street Angel, this is the next release. So gearing up for this to come out again at the end of October. I think it hits bookstores the first week in November. There's usually a week delay or something between the direct market and bookstores. I have no idea why, but for whatever reason, it will be out last week in October, first week in November, and I will be doing some promotion and some touring to support the release of this book. So before I get to the tour dates, I do want to say a little bit more kind of about the way these books look. And one of the values I have in comics, whether I'm reading comics or digging through back issue bins looking for something to read, I want comics, that look different, things that I haven't seen before. And some of that is because I'm trying to make comics, and so I'm trying to create my own visual identity in the comics that I make. But some of it is just, it's exciting to see something new and different. And I often remember, a lot of the comics that I really cherish and value will be comics that do something visually different. And it'll be the first time I see some effect. Could be printing, could be design, could be drawing, whatever. But it'll stand out, because it looks different. And so that's something I value and something I strive for in my own work. And it made me think about wrestling, of course, right? Cartoonist Kayfabe. We certainly spend plenty of time talking wrestling. And so here's a couple more minutes of that. And I will bring this back around to Street Angel and the Plain Janes. So there's been a lot of activity in professional wrestling lately. AEW has started broadcasting. WWE is now broadcasting 3 nights a week, I believe. And NWA Power has started up as like a YouTube studio wrestling channel. I've gotten a lot of messages from many Kayfabers out there about NWA Power, so I checked it out, and it's very interesting and reminds me a little bit of comics in a couple of ways. First of all, if you are of a certain age and you remember watching wrestling on television, like Saturday morning wrestling or something, you probably saw studio wrestling. This would be wrestling that was done at like a television studio, so a relatively small space, relatively small crowd, very distinct look, I would say. And a lot of territories had some version of studio wrestling. This would be the show that they would film and or record and broadcast to basically drive interest in their live shows, which is where most of their revenue came from at the time. 20 years ago or something, I'm not sure when, studio wrestling kind of faded out as like bigger cable, nationally broadcast television wrestling took over and became more profitable. So NWA has started a resurgence in the last couple of years, and they just started a new show that is studio wrestling, and it's kind of amazing. So several people sent me links to check this out. It's on YouTube. If you've ever watched wrestling as a kid, you'll probably recognize this as soon as you see it. It's a really interesting setup visually, and I heard an interesting take on a podcast that was describing it and was describing kind of like all of this different wrestling that's happening right now. And the podcaster said, we don't need more wrestling that looks like every other kind of wrestling. And so he was praising NWA Power because it looks different. And that's what I want in comics, and it's what I want in my own comics work. So that's something that seeing these advanced copies really kind of made me feel good about. I don't think they look like other comics that I see at the comic book store on New Comic Book Day. So I'm very excited to, bring these to you. I'm excited for them to be released. Ultimately, the success or failure of these comics depends on how readers respond to them. And so at this point, I have done what I can do. I can no longer change these comics or these books. They are going to go out to the public in the state that they are in, and I'm very excited for all of you to get hold of these and to read these and check these out. I will be doing some store appearances to promote these books, and so I have those dates and times here in front of me. Saturday, October 26th, I will be in Winchester, Virginia at Four Color Fantasies. That will be the first public release of Street Angel, Deadliest Girl Alive. I'll be there signing the books all day, along with zines and whatever other stuff I bring along, some prints and things like that. It's a big Halloween party, so if you're in the Winchester, Virginia area, please come out and check that out. Wednesday, October 30th, that is the actual street release date for Street Angel, Deadliest Girl Alive. I will be at my hometown store, Phantom of the Attic in Oakland in Pittsburgh, with Tom Scioli, who will be there signing Fantastic Four Grand Design #1. So I'm looking forward to that signing. It's been a while since I've done any store appearances or any events with Tom Scioli, kind of part-time member of the Kayfabe team here. And I think it'll be interesting to see the different people that come through there. I think we're going to have different audiences for Street Angel and Fantastic Four Grand Design, but hopefully there'll be some crossover, and it should be a good time. Phantom of the Attic in Oakland is one of my favorite comic book stores. I've been going there for 20 years. It's a fantastic store, a great staff. So looking forward to that. Ed's had several X-Men Grand Design events there. We've all been doing signings there. If you're in Pittsburgh, that's one of the standout stores. So October 30th, Wednesday, I think that starts at 4 p.m. We have a couple of appearances in November scheduled, and Ed will be back for these. The first one is on Wednesday, November 13th in Kansas City at Elite Comics. We will be there signing books, promoting books, talking comics, and we will do a live episode of Cartoonist Kayfabe there. We're also looking for the best barbecue spots we can find around there, so if you have any recommendations, please leave those in the comments below. And on Saturday, November 23rd for Comic Shop Day, Local Comic Shop Day, National Comic Shop Day, I'm not sure the official title, but Saturday, November 23rd, we are going to Charlotte. Heroes Are Not Hard to Find. That's Shelton Drum's fantastic comic book store, connected to the Heroes Con. Ed and I joke about Charlotte being our kind of home away from home. It's one of my favorite conventions. It's one of my favorite stores. It's a great group of people. Like Phantom of the Attic in Oakland, I feel a real comics kinship with Shelton and his staff. They have been great to me over the years, and I am looking forward to that event. And we will also be doing a live Cartoonist Kayfabe at Heroes Is Not Hard to Find on November 23rd. So if you're around Charlotte, definitely come out to that. I know that Shelton does a lot of events at Heroes Aren't Hard to Find. They always look well attended. They always look fun. So I look forward to connecting with all of you at one of these locations. All right, so that's my big news for the week so far. Let's see what Ed has been up to.
It's your Eastern Hemisphere weather correspondent Eddie P here reporting live and well, and the manga hunt commences, man. We started getting busy the day after the typhoon came through. Whenever I look out the window, I was sneaking peeks, and there would be like very little ribbons and flags and some other things kind of blowing in the wind that I was able to tell what the winds were like outside without stepping foot out there, you know what I'm saying? And eventually I like took a peek out there, and all of those flags and shit got ripped from their poles and their hinges and all that and just disappeared, and I knew that that was a bad sign. But the fact is, right in this exact area that we were at, shit was totally cool. Not that big of a deal, man. We just had one down day, but it gave me that chance to make that video I made earlier. And this one will not be produced in the same way that that one was, man, because I'm not trying to stay stuck in the hotel room if I can help it, man. So, where did we leave off? Mandarake is a shop I told you about, right? Well, I discovered another one called Book Off. Jim, I wonder if you ever went to a Book Off, dude, because and maybe this could be us playing telephone in the video when it goes back to your turn, or however you decide to edit this. You would let me know if you went to a Book Off. But these stores are in almost every ward. You know, almost every town here in Tokyo has a Book Off, and they have 100 yen manga. This is less than a bottle of water. What am I going to do? I'm going to have to ship a bunch of stuff, I think, man. I have 2 giant luggages, and I can put up to 70 pounds because I got that first class ticket. I could put up to 70 pounds in each, but what the fuck? I got to figure out and see if I can actually get these luggages shipped to the airport. If that's the case, then it's all gravy. Anyhow, the manga hunt commences. I got that one kind of outlaw comic. To break kayfabe, this is take 2 because there was a fucked up metal sound right outside the window, and it left a little hiss, a little whine through the whole video, and it made me fucking insane, and it would make you guys insane as well. So bear with me, man, because like I'm just chilling in my Creston Hotel PJs, you know what I'm saying, man? Cold chilling right before I go get some dinner with the homies. So let me grab this one comic that I was talking about. Boom. Got this motherfucker, man. You're gonna love seeing this under the microscope once the time comes. It is not by Go Nagai. I fucked up last time. It was one of his apprentices. Kaze Shinobu is the cat's name, and the title of this manga translates to something like Ryu or Ryu, the Earth's Strongest Man, something like that. Google that shit, check out the interiors, and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But once we put this baby under the microscope, you're gonna see why this was a must-have. The best way that I could describe the manga hunt as it stands now and my experiences out here in Japan at this moment, in America, like Jim and I, we've been into comics our whole lives basically, and we've uncovered most of the best material that we have to offer, and we have so much, and we keep discovering things. We discover names like Craig Storman, we discover Ken Landgraf, and then just through the mailbag episodes recently became acquainted with a guy named Steve McCardle. But we have to dig deep to find these comics that have any vision and are the least bit interesting. The thing with Japan is it's a whole new language of comics. It's a whole new idiom. There are tropes and traits of these comics that we just aren't that acquainted with, and there's so much stuff that just has not yet been translated to English. So that's a part of like my thing. Like, I'm grabbing a bunch of stuff that hasn't yet come to America and may never come to the States. So for instance, can I show a couple of things, man? I was on a man bend kind of bender the one day, because like every day I'll go to the shop and take a look at one or two things, man, and bring something back at least. So I was on a man bend quest the one day, and the idea was, let me get one volume of several Naoki Urasawa comics that haven't yet made their way to America. So let me show a couple of those off real fast. Alright, there's a Yawara, however you say that. Believe it or not, this is a judo comic. And it was like 27, 28 episodes of this. Boom. Then Urasawa did a comic called Happy. Somewhere in there he did Pineapple Army. I didn't grab any of those yet because I feel like that one has the best chance of like coming to America. And then his most recent gimmick, the one that he's working on when he's doing Man Bend, is Billy Bat. And one of my friends at Viz said that they not to expect Billy Bat to be translated anytime soon. I guess it's supposed to be kind of weird, man. And that's the thing. There's a lot of Japanese comics, man, that they're just like too close to the culture of Japan, and that they fear that the Americans just won't get it. I've yet to go to the Shueisha building, though my homie at Viz is connected with the former editor-in-chief from Shueisha, and that's the publisher of Shonen Jump magazine. The editor-in-chief now works at Viz, so we're trying to make that connection, man, so that I could get through those doors. Might not be able to bring the camera, but I'll at least be able to report what I see and what I discover. That's the thing, man. Unfortunately, a lot of shops aren't trying to like have cameras in there. And I was just at a Kinnikuman exhibition, and they would let you have cameras in certain parts, but not the original art section, which was a big freaking bummer. Another question for you, Jimmy. Did you get to see, or did you take any time when you were at Nakano Broadway Mall to hang out at the one Mandarake store where they sell animation cells? Let me paint a picture for you if you've not been. It is roughly the size of the Piercing Pagoda at your shopping mall. You know, it's like, except it is a storefront. It's not a pagoda, so it goes in deep, maybe 11 feet, and it is a bookshelf full of portfolios like you see at the at comic festivals, man, on people's tables, where it's, you know, you put the artwork in the sleeves, packed to the brim, every single page, and there must be 200 or 300, probably far more, full of animation cells from almost any anime you could think of. Unfortunately for me, the title is on the spine in Japanese, so I can't read that shit, but I just pull them off. And it's like, oh, this is a book full of Voltron animation cells. Some of them have the background paintings too, and they cost $30. You know what I mean? Original art, $30 for a sketch, animation cell, and the background painting on a lot of stuff. There was a section with Studio Ghibli, but that's obviously like far more expensive. There was I couldn't yet find Fist of the North Star, but they had Fist of the Blue Sky, and it still looks like that Hara Tetsuo art. So I mean, it's real sick looking. I saw Transformers. I saw Kinnikuman cells, all kinds, and so much stuff I don't even know, you know. And it's all so good. It's all so perfect. It's all so cheap. I saw Kimba the White Lion cells, man, for like $20. There were actually some cells for like $5. What am I going to do, guys? I want it all. Speaking of Kinnikuman, I am making this video right after checking out the Kinnikuman exhibition. Once again, oh yeah, the reason I even brought up the cell thing was because no cameras there. The cameras in the Mandarake, that can be dicey sometimes too. I get it too, man, because their shops are small. Tokyo, to me, it feels like it's like it's about churn and burn. Like, come in, eat your food, get the fuck out, let the next person in. You know, there's so many people here, so like these shops, it's like they're very congested, and they can't be having dudes with gimbals and monopods taking film all day. But at this Kinnikuman exhibition, they let you take pictures of everything but the original art, and man, it was freaking cool seeing that stuff. Now, if you know Muscle, if you know Kinnikuman from word go, it began as like an Ultraman riff, an Ultraman parody gag manga, and then it grew into what it became, which was, this sort of 40-year phenomenon. It came out in 1979 to start. And checking out the original artwork was so cool, man, because for every kind of iteration, every evolution of the series, the artwork is being drawn at a different size, different format, different tools are being used. There's a brush period where most of the heavy line was brush, and then they would go back to G pen. I've seen things done with screen tone that I've never seen done before. The use of the deleter white or white opaque paint or whatever the fuck they use as a reduction agent for effect was so cool. Man, I'm going to have to go back. That exhibition is going to be up until like October 29th or something. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, I'm definitely going back. Whenever I go to these things with my friends, like, I feel nervous about their time and shit. So, like, I give everything a good once over, and then I sneak back and I will spend hours just staring at those pages, trying to burn them into my freaking mind, because one, I never had any idea, and I never thought that it would even be possible to take a look at original manga pages, let alone Kinnikuman pages, let alone every iteration of Kinnikuman. Also, not only am I like just chilling in my Creston PJs after a hard day's work, man, of adventuring around Tokyo, but I just finished some snacks, man. So I finished an apple Coca-Cola. Tastes like battery acid at the end of it. Like, you drink it, it's okay, and then there's like this aftertaste that'll probably fucking cause me trouble in the future. And then what is it? Chestnut flavored Kit Kats, man. So I'm living my best life, man. Other things on the docket that I have coming up, I'm gonna have to check out. Shueisha still, Kodansha. There's another publisher. I have a homie who's connected with those joints. Also, trying to get a tour of Square Enix, man. We're working that out right now. It would be nice to bring the camera. I don't know if that's going to happen. Speaking of Square Enix, let's talk Famicom for a hot second, man. Even though this is Cartoonist Kayfabe, a lot of us are fucking video game nerds too, man. So I went to Akihabara for the first time and was checking out all of the video game shops and shit, man. Like, so many retro video game stores. I got to see what the first iterations, the first cartridges and stuff of like Final Fantasy games, Mario. I was on the hunt for my homeboy. He's coming out like the last week, and I just wanted to do a little reconnaissance for him because he's going to be here on such a limited capacity, man. And the two things he wanted, man, Zelda and the Japanese Mario Brothers 2 that we never got in America except on some bullshit port for Super Nintendo that doesn't count. But Mario 2 is a disc system game. It's not for Famicom proper, so you got to get the disc system for that. And like, Zelda out here is rare. It's hard to find. Like, the only ones that we were able to find were like mint in package that cost like $160 or something, man. Pretty penny. The thing about these shops, dude, is, yes, like, you proffer yen, you take object with you, but these joints are like the most amazing pop culture museums I've ever been to. Just like the Kinnikuman thing, I never thought I would see so much Famicom stuff in my life. I've always wanted to see Famicom things. Super Famicom, PC Engine, Mega Drive. You know what I mean? Let me see what the Japanese Sega stuff is like. And one other detour from the Manga Quest is going to be checking out the Kawasaki warehouse. I took a look on Google Maps. It's a big giant arcade that's meant to look like a dystopian, kind of like fucked up, like Akira alley building or something, man. And this arcade is going away. I think it's like 5 floors of arcade games and shit. And it's going to be going away mid-November. So I have to make sure I get my ass there because never have the opportunity again, man. It's not that far away. I was saying I was going to stay in Tokyo, man, but I got to step out of Tokyo for that one. A couple other things on the agenda too, man. I have a couple more mangaka to meet, so that's going to be very, very fun. The next one coming up Friday is going to be a woman who makes manga and also teaches manga. So that's going to be a very interesting day. But all that said, 20 minutes is about what I'm good for right now, man, because I'm in the middle of motherfucking Tokyo. I got a bunch of people I'm trying to get dinner with in like 20 minutes, man. So I'm going to get the hell out of here. Let Jimmy wrap up this show.
Man, these videos that Ed is shooting and all the photos that he's sharing from Tokyo are certainly bringing back memories from whenever I went to Tokyo a couple of years ago. It is such a, I think it's a mythical place if you're a comics fan, and my experience there and Ed's experience looks like it surpasses whatever that is. I can remember whenever friends went to Europe for festivals before I ever made it there, and they would talk about how comics and comics culture was just different. And I feel the same way about Japanese comics. It's such a different, everybody, it seems like everybody reads comics and there are comics for everyone. And I think that American comics are becoming more like that, where, there are comics for young readers and old readers and different genres and non-genres. And it's really exciting. And a lot of that, to me, you can find that in manga. And so seeing all of Ed's updates is really exciting. If you're not following the Cartoonist Kayfabe Instagram, you should give that a follow. Ed has been posting a lot of photos from his trip, a lot of manga that he's seeing, just a lot of beautiful photography from Japan and from Tokyo. So if you're a fan of comics, and obviously you are if you're still watching, I would recommend highly give the Cartoonist Kayfabe Instagram a follow. It's one of the best ways to keep up with what Ed is showing off there, and you will not be disappointed. Ed mentioned a couple of questions in his video for me. One was if I've been to the animation store at Nakano Broadway Mall. I did visit Nakano Broadway Mall. It is as advertised. If you go to Tokyo as a comics fan, make sure you go to Nakano Broadway Mall. In fact, plan a couple of days there. I only spent half a day there. I missed a lot. I did not see the animation store that Ed has described in this video, but it sounds amazing. It makes me want to go back for sure. And I can't wait to see what Ed brings home from there. Cell animation is really interesting to me. I have some friends that collect cell animation, so it's pretty cool to see that stuff. Voltron was one of those cartoons that I watched as a little kid. I used to watch it over breakfast. I think I was in second grade when it was like syndicated and on at the right time for me to watch. And so it brings back memories. I can't wait to see what he brings home from that. One thing you all may want to do if you haven't seen it already is Ed has a cell from Akira. He has a couple of cells, and we looked at that on a previous episode of Cartoonist Kayfabe Show and Tell. So you may want to check that out if you're interested, if that sounds interesting. The other question that Ed asks is if I went to a store called Book Off. I've bought comics from all sorts of outlets whenever I was in Tokyo. Bookstores, used bookstores, comic shops, newsstands. I bought them off of a guy that just had like a blanket spread out on a sidewalk and was selling books. I can't remember the name of the bookstores that I went in. I went in several. Ed posted a picture of Book Off. It was an aisle of manga that just kind of went on and on. It looks really familiar. I don't know whether that's a store I went in or not. The conceit with Book Off is that they sell used manga, and I guess it's about $1, equivalent of about $1 US for all this manga. That was something that really struck me whenever I was in Tokyo, is the prices for most of these books felt like about 10% of what the price would be in America. When I was there, I came home with a suitcase full of books. I'm not sure I spent $5 on any single book. Many of them were $1 or $2 a piece. And these were for, 150, 200 page manga collections. And so I always thought, like, how do we should be able to like ship these, or someone should be importing these things because the prices are so low. Like, we would just eat them up, comic book fans in the US, if we could get our hands on them. But of course, shipping can be expensive, tracking them down can be expensive, or can be challenging because, like I would go in with pictures of covers and, I did not read Japanese characters. And so it was a little bit hard just kind of like sorting, like I would just browse and whatever would catch my eye, or I might have a couple of things I was looking for and find an artist like Matsumoto and then find like a section of Matsumoto books. So there are some challenges there, but in my mind it was like somebody should figure this out as a business because I would love to have access to this stuff more than once in my lifetime. And in issue 3 of the Bubbles zine, there's an article about buying manga from Mandarake, which is I guess it's a network of stores in Tokyo that sell manga, and they have an online presence. And in Bubbles, Brian talks about allocating, say, $45, including shipping and handling, and going online and buying some of this stuff. And so he kind of walks through that process. You can try that if you're interested at mandarake.co.jp. There's an English component to their site. It's pretty interesting. If you find a book that you're interested in, you can even comparatively price it to other stores. There's like a dozen stores that I guess are under this website umbrella. Shipping and handling, I think it comes out, I don't know if it's a flat rate, maybe depends on how much you buy, but it's something like $20 or $25. But if you're paying, $1 to $4 a book, you can still kind of pick up several books and get a nice little haul there. So that's something to check out if you're interested in seeing, a little bit of the experience of shopping for manga in Tokyo. It's not the same as browsing those shelves, but something, maybe a little taste. I thought I would recap a few of the videos that we have been posting lately. This past week, Wizard number 32 went up. We've heard from several people that that's their first issue of Wizard, which is always a fun one to kind of tune into. It is the Batman Spawn crossover by Todd McFarlane and Frank Miller. I can understand why that issue would have caught the eye of a lot of comics readers. Those are arguably two of the most popular cartoonists of the early 90s. Those are two of the biggest characters of that time period. So it's kind of the perfect storm, I think, for Wizard to probably attract as many readers as it possibly could at the time. And like I said, it's very fun to go back into these Wizards, especially if there is a first issue or if there is an issue that you remember fondly. And Wizard 32 definitely seems to be one of those books that stands up maybe a little above the average issue of Wizard magazine. Ed, while he was in Tokyo, the first week he was there was a massive typhoon. So one day Ed was stuck inside and he put together a video and posted it about what he had seen so far. And he's visited a mangaka, he's visited several retail outlets. He has a really knowledgeable translator that he's been traveling with who actually, I think, translates some English comics into Japanese. So, it's a comics fan who's very knowledgeable and sounds like the perfect guide to be visiting Tokyo with. Anyway, you can see all of this on Ed's Tokyo Quest, which is available now on the channel. We also posted a 50-cent sale haul. Those are always popular. There's Jack Kirby, Alan Moore, Troy Nixie's maybe his first comics, kind of an outlaw cartoonist that we're friends with. There's alternative comics in this haul, including Dirty Plot #1, Hate, Peep Show, and of course, there are ninja comics, because am I really going to go through 50-cent boxes and not find some ninja comics? So those are some of the recent videos that we've posted. Be sure and check those out. I recently did an interview for DC in the 80s. It's a webzine about DC Comics from the 1980s. I talk extensively about Lobo, I guess from the early 90s. I'm trying to think when that first series came out. But I talk a lot about Lobo and Simon Bisley. The whole interview is about Lobo, my history with the character's publication history at that time period. And it's been interesting to me to see how much Lobo coverage is in these first couple years of Wizard magazine. So it's kind of fun going through there. I talk about how I discovered Lobo, which was kind of unusual, and also how different Lobo was from everything else that I was seeing. I was still buying comics at that time off of the newsstand rack, so my selection was very narrow, and Lobo seemed like something different. So we get into that. It's pretty fun conversation if you're interested. I will post a link below this video to that interview. I have kind of a funny story. We often joke about the kayfabe effect, and loosely the kayfabe effect is we highlight some cartoonist or maybe some little known old comic book, maybe something independent, and the result is a little bit of spike in interest around that book or that cartoonist. So several weeks ago, cartoonist and self-publisher Steve McCardle sent us some comics: Vendetta, Holy Vindicator, Crowbar 9, Artillery, and he self-published all of these books in addition to writing and drawing them. He self-published them under the Red Bullet Comics imprint in the early to mid-90s, which, as we get into that era in Wizard coverage, you know, the comics market really kind of goes into a free fall. And so, tough times for a self-publisher. And he had reached out and sent us some copies of these books a few mail episodes ago, and we loved them. You know, they look like outlaw comics, they look interesting, they have kind of a hodgepodge of influences from that era, you know, some image stuff, some very underground alternative stuff, self-published, love that. So we were very excited by them, looked on eBay to see if there were any more comics by McCardle, and there was one guy selling a lot of issues 1 to 4 for $150. I did receive notification that lot sold. So I think Steve McCardle was actually selling listing some of his comics on eBay now. But I feel like, you know, $150 for a set of his comics, that's a little bit of a kayfabe effect there. So way to go, Steve. Hopefully he'll be able to reap some of that interest as a result, and hopefully people who are interested, who have seen those comics and think they look good, are now able to find them, because they're pretty tough to come by. I also look on mycomicshop.com whenever some comic crosses my path and I haven't heard of it, or I'm curious, trying to track it down. And I think of his comics, only like one of the titles is listed on mycomicshop.com, which is further proof of how the black and white comics explosions and self-published comics, a lot of them aren't widely known. You know, there's no good record of all of this stuff. Even with a big retailer like mycomicshop.com, some of these titles are just completely, there's almost no record of their existence. So there you go. Proof of the kayfabe effect. So check those out. And right now you can track down at least a few of them on eBay directly from the artist himself. Comic shop retailers. We love comic shops. We want to help you promote your comic shop. If you have a promotional video, part of the Eisner Retailer Award requires shops to create a promotional video for the Eisner Committee. If you have one of those videos, please let us know that. We'd be happy to run that. This week we're going to run a promotional video for Phantom of the Attic in Oakland, where again, Tom Scioli and I will be signing on October 30th. Tom will be signing Fantastic Four Grand Design #1. I will be signing Street Angel Deadliest Girl Alive. Big day for Cartoonist Kayfabe. But we love showing off these comic shops. And if your shop has a video that you would like to share with us, please reach out. You can email us at cartoonist.kayfabe@gmail.com. That will play at the end here. In the meantime, like, follow, and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to click the bell icon to be notified whenever we post any new videos. This includes whenever we stream videos. So often Ed or I will stream live drawing sessions, inking sessions, mail. We go through our mail and unboxing sessions live often. So if you want to keep up with the channel, and if you want to keep up with the live streams, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell icon. Speaking of mail, you can send us your comics at Cartoonist Kayfabe, P.O. Box 3071, Munhall, PA 15120. That address is below the video if you didn't catch it. You can pick up Cartoonist Kayfabe t-shirts and merch at our spread shop. There's a link below the video to that. And you all know what to do. Read more comics and make more comics.
The Attic. We're the comic shop in the Oakland area of Pittsburgh. My name is Jeff Yandor. I'm the store owner. And last year we did some upgrades to our shop, and I think I want to give you an opportunity to see what we've done. We've been here since 1983, fostering, I think, a pretty strong readership community of comics. I've always been interested in local community of comics, and here we are in 2009, I think with our best rendition of Our Family the Attic here yet. So I'm going to spend some time and show you some of the things we did.
So it's Tuesday night in the shop. We've moved all the new comics from the new comic racks in the middle of the store. We've moved them over into the wall. All the shelving units on these have designed to be modular with the turn of an Allen wrench. They can be very easily moved. This allows us to completely rebuild the display every week depending on the number of books we get in and various other merchandise.
One thing we decided to do with our new look for the store, we wanted to work with local designers in local Western Pennsylvania. We found a really excellent young architect, woodwork carpentry guy named Matt Clifford. These are our new comic racks, which display the past month's worth of comics. They kind of remind us a little bit of comic panels in a certain way, and I think it works pretty well, and the customers seem to like them.
One of our priorities in the new store was lots of room for graphic novels. We really see that as one of the primary directions this industry is moving. We wanted lots of room for display, as well as lots of room for our customers to browse. We really believe a big portion of the potential new comics market are people who are comfortable with the bookstore metaphor instead of the old comic shop thing. We've always promoted the idea of comics as reading and art instead of as a commodity, so we've always thought of ourselves more as a bookstore in the first place.
One thing that's been a long-standing tradition here at Family Attic in Oakland is our support of independent and alternative comics for both local creators and what's available nationally, internationally. So we carry both indie comics and graphic novels, and we support everything here with our new shelving units. We have the latest independent and alternative comic creators. We have right here, we have local Western Pennsylvania creators and artists. Tons and tons of back-issue independent comics.
Pretty much the history of the last 30 years of independent comics are represented in these drawers.
All right, in our new store we have two merchandise boutiques. This is one of them, and they're both identical pieces. And we've lovingly called this one Monster Island because it houses all our Gundams, our Japanese monsters and import items. This is like our all-purpose boutique. We use it to push whatever is new in independent or mainstream comics. If there's a movie coming out, we use it to promote the product for a movie like Watchmen and such. Green Lantern because of the push this summer and such. We've always carried back issue comics, even though it seems to be less and less of our percentage of our business. So our designer came with this great idea. We actually have the exact amount of comics we had in our previous location, but we have a smaller footprint in the store because everything's vertical. So it houses current back issues, and we have some Silver Age and other things involved. So this is our supply hut. It's sturdy, and it houses all our boards and bags for our comic customers' supply needs.
On the sides, we have room for our boxes. We have magazine boxes on this side.
On this side is,
and we have long boxes, short boxes on that side.
The lids and both components, and they're perfectly fit.
The entire counter, if you follow me around this way, you can see there are a number of shelves and cubby holes, display space on top, workspace on top. We have some higher priced comics in the front of the counter, the type of thing that people might not see in the rest of the store when they walk around, stuff that we want to highlight. The subscription service, in drawers, much like the back issues, we regularly service, on average, around 300 subscribers at any given moment that we pull books for every Wednesday morning. And I think that's important. Even though we've expanded, we're in a space that's 8 to 10 times bigger than we've ever been in before. We're a small store at heart. We know our customers. We know most of our customers' names. We know what they read. People enjoy coming in here and just hanging out. It's an oasis from the rest of the world.
Looking forward to doing a lot more things and pushing comics as much as we can, like we always do.
Comic shop of the future.